The Federal High Court Abuja has nullified and set aside the passage of the 2024 River State budget by Edison Ehia. Justice James Omotosho, in a judgment, recognized Martin Amewule as the authentic Speaker of the River State House of Assembly. Judiciary correspondent Celestina Aria reports.
Constitutionally,
all actions taken by Edison Ehi as the Speaker of Rivers State House of Assembly and 3 others have been nullified by the court. Governor Fubara will now have to represent the budget to the legally constituted House of Assembly under the leadership of Martin Amewule. The court also restrained Governor Fubara from frustrating the activities of the House of Assembly under Mr. Amewule. The court insists the National Assembly has no power to take over the activities of the Rivers State House of Assembly when it still performs its legislative duties. The Inspector General of Police have been ordered to give protection to Martin Amewule. The court also ruled that withholding of the State House of Assembly funds by the governor is unconstitutional. Also, the redeployment of the clerk and deputy clerk by the governor is null and void. Justice Omotosho ordered the clerk and the deputy clerk to resume office immediately and unhindered. Governor Fubara was ordered to release all monies staying in the credit of the House of Assembly to Martin Amewule.
In clear terms, condemns various acts of the 11th defendant, that is the governor, and equally the acts of the Honorable Ehi Edison, who are purported to be the Speaker. The governor, his lordship, in clear terms, declared that as of today, the National Assembly do not have any reason or justification to take over the constitutional functions of the Rivers State House of Assembly.
The doctrine of separation of power is to allow the 3 arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, act independently without undue interference, but also ensuring there are checks and balances. Celestina Iria, TVC News, Abuja.
This evening, we're shifting attention to Rivers State as Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court in Abuja nullifies the 800 billion naira budget passed by the Edison Ehia-led group of the Rivers State House of Assembly. Let's remind you that on December 13, 2023, in the heat of the protracted political crisis between Governor Fubara and his predecessor, former Governor Nyesom Wike, Governor Fubara presented the 2024 budget proposal of 800 billion naira to 5 members of the State Assembly, led by Edison Ehia. This presentation was done at the Government House in Port Harcourt, following the demolition of the Assembly complex by the state government, and after a court restrained Ehia's contender, Martin Amewule, from using the Assembly complex. Tonight, let's get some insight and some legal perspective into this matter. And joining me for this is Libro Soshoma. He's a lawyer and a public affairs analyst. Also joining us via Zoom is Sir Ken Okolubo, a public affairs analyst. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and welcome to Politics Tonight. Sir Ken, good evening to you. Welcome to Politics Tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Right. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of this judgment and all of the issues related, let me have your general view of the political impasse going on in Rivers State.
You know, we've spoken about this on your program. And
absolutely.
I also we also had the discussion on this Rivers impasse on your sister station, Arise. And I was very clear. I said the political solution that was preferred by the president was because of the conflicting court orders that had come. And in his wisdom, even though he did not have the constitutional powers to interfere, he preferred a solution which a lot of people were kicking against. And the court has clearly also shown that the wisdom that was shown in preferring those political solutions was quite in order. You remember on the 30th of October, when the House of Assembly was burnt, the 27 members sat, and they sat in the Assembly premises, and they suspended Edison Ehia as the majority leader of the House, and 3 others. And so when you have taken such a valid decision, how would someone now say that Edison Ehie suddenly has become the speaker with 3 people electing him? And Kayode Omotosho on the 29th of November, like I said before now, clearly restrained the governor from removing the clerk and the deputy clerk, and also interfering with the members of the Rivers State House of Assembly. That judgment came before Danagogo's own in December, which was about the 11th of December, where he now said he would be recognizing Edison Ehie as the speaker. So I think the National Judicial Council should discipline some of these judges, because if a court of coordinate jurisdiction has given an ex parte order, I don't see why you should be sitting as an appellate court over such a court, even though some have kicked against ex parte orders and have said, look, let us put the other party on notice so that we can reach a conclusion, just like it has been reached now. But I think the courts were a bit careless with the Rivers State issue. And that has come to bear with today's judgment.
Right. So aside this peace pact that was brokered between the 2 parties, talking about former Governor Wike and his successor, Fubara, do you really think both parties have now settled all their political differences?
No, but you see, what the judgment clearly said was that the presentation of the budget was an aberration, 800 billion naira. So every money that has been spent from that budget is illegal. So that is what it is right now. And secondly, they have also recognized the speaker, which was also part of the peace pact. So as it is, the governor had released their funds before now that he had withheld. He has also recognized Emehuele as the Speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly. And the Speaker has also cleared the commissioners, the 9 commissioners that resigned in solidarity with the FCT minister. And so, if you look at it, the court is only validating the peace pact. That is exactly what I see in all this.
But, I mean, just like you said, the assembly that sat over the now erstwhile budget was a 5-man assembly, who at that time, or at the time, was acknowledged because the other members moved from their political party to another, and which by law were no longer members of the assembly as they had, lost their seats. Is this court, or is the court by this judgment implying that all legislative decision taken by that assembly, if any, is no longer valid?
If you notice what I said, on the 29th of November, that was when Kayode Omotosho restrained the governor from interfering with the House. As at that time, the members had not moved to the APC. They were still members of the PDP.
So Ken, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Please go ahead.
Yes, as at the time they moved to the APC, it was after Kayode Omotosho restrained the governor from interfering with the activities of the House. So they were still members of the PDP. So I believe the court is not going to be, was not looking into the issue of their cross-carpeting. The court was only looking at the issues that were before them. And the issues before them was very clear that as at that material point in time, they were members of the PDP. And so by the time they moved, the court had already said, don't interfere. And the only person that can declare a seat vacant is the speaker. So if the court recognized Emehuele as the speaker, how do you then declare who is now declaring seats vacant? You just don't declare, you just don't say people, because people have moved, their seats have been declared vacant. There's a process by which the Constitution says that you declare the seats vacant. So what the court has said is that as at the time we gave this interim order, these people were still members of the PDP. They were not yet members of the APC. So that's exactly how the court is viewing it as at now.
Mr. Libros Oshoma, welcome to Politics Tonight. Now, as a lawyer, please talk us through the legal framework upon which the court stood on to nullify that budget.
Thank you. First and foremost, I think the entire process, it's a fallout of the resolution reached by party. I would not know why the governor delayed in representing the budget. Maybe he has been advised before now that the budget presentation for all intent and purpose since it's been passed, that that process was legal. But morally speaking, one would argue that the budget presentation should logically would head because we all know the way budgets are presented. Budget presentation ought to, but the budget ought to have been properly scrutinized by the committees responsible. Commissioners ought to have come to defend their budget and the issues raised if any if need be. But the budget was passed the same day, just few hours after it was presented. That's the quickest budget in the history of state budgeting. And I think it is in line with that that the budget was declared, the budget presentation was declared nullified actually. Because really, well, like Ken said also, the process of budget presentation, let's assume that truly the House, the seat of other members have been truly declared vacant by the Speaker there. And so in a House of 32 members, you now have only 5 members after declaring 27 members seat vacant. Also, logic would demand that anything that ought to be done should be delayed, even though you see as at that time, the only standing members in the House were 5 members. But logic also would demand that the House will have the full complement of the House with committees that would properly look into the budget, ask specific questions, so we don't make a kangaroo of the situation. But as it is, all of that were not done. It was as if, what do you call it, an empty box was presented. It was as if the House did not even look at the budget at all. Nobody saw the budget. And then the document was presented in the House. And then by 2 hours' time, the next thing we heard that the budget had been assented to and been passed by the House and had been assented to. While people also, would want to support Governor Fubara for the political travail he's going through, also I think it is best, for him to also align with the people in his plans and programs and actions and inaction. That budget presentation for me morally stood, logic on its head. And it was proper for the court to say, you know what, go and redo this process so that we don't make a mockery of democracy. Because the budget is a law of the state. It's an appropriation law of the state. The way funds should be expended. And if you do not have the full complement of the House to look into it, it then means that that law was not properly used.
Absolutely. So let me stay with you, Mr. Libros. I mean, according to that judgment, Justice James Omotosho said the budget was not properly presented before the River State House of Assembly. The judge also recognized Martin Amewule as the authentic speaker and faulted Governor Fubara for meddling in the affairs of the state's legislative organ. Could you explain how the governor interfered here?
First and foremost, let me quickly lay a foundation. After that resolution reached with the president, and then a lot of people were shouting and saying that the president had no right to meddle in the affairs or call the parties, warring parties, to sheathe their sword or request them to sign a resolution. I did say copiously that the best lifeline that the governor could get is that resolution by the president, and that it was in his best interest to go ahead with that resolution, because knowing the kind of political terrain that we are in, the court can do anything. The court can come up tomorrow and say that the speaker, the factional speaker of the 27 members remains the speaker, and that the 27 members' seats were not properly declared vacant. And once that happens, we all know that once that happens, the 27 members that have the speaker, and it is the law that the speaker is the person that can determine where the House would meet in the absence of a statutory place recognized for the business of the House. They can meet anywhere and put a mace and decide that they have impeached the governor. And then, while lawyers will be debating the propriety or otherwise of that impeachment, they will ask the man to go to court. So, and that's exactly what we're seeing now. And the court has said, well, that speaker remains the authentic speaker. What the court initially gave was an interim order. And so, the court now ruled that the speaker remains the authentic speaker, and that the budget presentation was not proper in the eye of the law. And so what that means is that the budget can be represented just the same way the president had advised that the budget should be represented to the full complement of the House. So it is like the judgment of the court and the resolution reached, and so the judgment actually, like Ken also has said, expressing the intent of the resolution. So interference, on the ground of interference, you remember when every governor certainly would want to have a house that will be at his beck and call. I do not know, I can't sit down here to say this is how Governor Fubara interfered in the business of the house. The Governor Fubara were not aware, what do you call it now? Went to the house to mobilize members to elect speakers. But I also am aware that, Edison, who is loyal to Fubara, there are implications that there was some form of encouragement from the government house, even though after he was suspended by, allegedly, suspended by, a faction, the 27 members went to Wiki in the house before he emerged as a faction of people.
Right,
all of this can be viewed as interference that the court is referring to. But I cannot directly, point to an interference from the government house. But apart from unfair interference.
Right, just before I get back to Saked, I mean, these lawmakers who defected from the PDP to the APC and have now been recalled to the House to continue their legislative duties. What does this mean in the eyes of the law?
Ordinarily, by the provisions of the law, I think section 60, section 56 of the Constitution, when a lawmaker defects, when a lawmaker defects, he loses his seat, provided he can show that the defection is as a result of a crisis in his party. And the court has consistently, the Supreme Court has interpreted crisis to mean not just crisis at the local or state level, but crisis at the national, level of the party, that such crisis is strong enough to tear the party into two. And also the Speaker of the House is empowered to declare the seat of the members with them. So the question now would be, who is the Speaker of the House? That's the first question. And so the issue of speakership was in question as at that time. And so also the members are contesting the declaration of their seats. But the president subsequently intervened and asked all parties to shield their sword and let parties return to status quo, let all court actions be withdrawn. So once that happens and parties decide to sign the resolution to shift their sword. So what it simply means is for the parties to go back to court and say that all actions that were taken, had been notified by them by their resolution. And the declarations that were made, to the extent that they didn't have the full complement of the House, those declarations, they on their own have decided to nullify those declarations for the sake of peace. So it is not in the mouth of anybody to say because a speaker, a factional speaker, had made a pronouncement that is, quote and unquote, a subject of litigation or that is in contention, and that so that situation cannot be undone, and that once the seat has been declared vacant, and that they can no longer be recalled. No, that's not true. The said seat declared vacant, mind you, it is even still a question of the man who is declaring the seat vacant is a factional speaker. There's also allegation that he was suspended before he emerged as a speaker. All of those issues are the issues that the court will eventually look into to determine if indeed the action taken were taken in line with the provisions of the law. But in doing all of that, in going through the gamut of all of those layers of issues, and parties decide to resolve. It is in the best interest of peace and prosperity or progress for the parties to say, you know what, all of the steps taken before, we have decided to go back before the war, to status quo before the war, so that to move forward. And for me, it is also, in consonance with the provisions of the law, if they decide to do that. There is no law forbidding. There's no law forbidding that action, that resolution, from the speaker or whoever made that resolution, from making another resolution recalling the members.
All right. Second, let me come to you. Because many have thought Governor Fubara would, scale through with this act. First, do you see a smooth and cordial presentation when the time comes?
Well, what I actually thought was that after the peace pact, they should have all come together genuinely, especially during the Yuletide. The peace pact was done before the Yuletide. That was an opportunity in the spirit of Christmas for them to genuinely come and embrace themselves. But it's obvious that this peace pact was done for the purpose of just looking for a way to, make everyone calm down. Maybe Fubara calm down, Ameule and the members calm down, and it's not really been seen as a genuine embrace of peace. Because the implementation of this peace pact has been delayed. The governor was supposed to have represented this budget. He has recognized the speaker. The members and the speaker has resigned the impeachment of the governor. They have also said that they were going to abide by the resolution of the peace pact. And the governor has eventually presented the commissioners who had resigned. And in this kind of situation, when you allow people to fan the embers of discord, you make a lot of people who are jobless. We describe them in political science as those who benefit from one pestilence. They try to fan the embers of discord because they benefit from it. Military-industrial complex kind of people. And so they will continue to profile and pontificate. If you have signed a peace pact, you should implement it. You shouldn't go about, giving room for those who were not there when decisions were taken to start coming in to make you think that you are weak, you are not strong enough, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that. You have signed it and you have signed it. Yes, others might have their views and might not be okay. But you have taken that decision. You are the one wearing the shoe. You know where it's pinching. You also let those who were supporting you down. Because those who were trying to support you were saying, oh no, they thought this peace pact was skewed against you. But why delay? That's a question you must also ask yourself. Now the court has taken this decision. Is he going to appeal the judgment? Edison here has already resigned. And even when he resigned, the House clearly said he was not recognized as a speaker. And so they rejected that resignation, saying the speaker had resigned and resigned his membership of the House. And one of the members have also gone to court with some of the elders of the Rivers State Council. I think what the governor must do is he should take the bull by the horn. He should rather not give the impression that he's neither here nor there. Because these cases are being sponsored in courts. Nobody is stupid. If you are not encouraging it, they won't go to court. You, in one breath, you say you are okay with the peace pact, you have signed it, and in one breath, you are encouraging people to go to court to challenge it. Where do you put your state? Your state is not moving forward. So I think what he should do is, at this material point in time, is to embrace this judgment, since it is part of the peace pact. They were also supposed to have withdrawn their cases in court. Maybe this one, they couldn't withdraw it. The remaining cases should be withdrawn in the spirit of the peace pact and actually embrace peace. I don't think the House is going to crack if he presents that budget and allow the committees look into the budget and do a proper scrutiny of the budget before they pass it into law. A budget is a law. People don't know it. If you carry out expenditures outside the budget, it's an impeachable offense. So commissioners will come and defend their budget. Ministries will come and defend their budgets. Departmental agencies will come and defend their budgets. And the House will eventually scrutinize that budget and then pass it into law and he would sign it. I don't think it's too much for him to do. If he continues to linger on, you give room for all these distractions. That's what I think.
I mean, with your position, which also aligns with the verdict of the court, clearly the governor had engaged in a constitutional impunity. And I mean, to say, this is not the first time we've seen governors execute and get away with impunities of all sorts. But you think this will serve as a deterrent to others?
Well, you might not say it's impunity because as at the time he presented that budget, there was a court order from Danagogo saying that here was recognized as a speaker. And since here was recognized as a speaker at that material point in time, he would not, you can't say that maybe he has carried out a constitutional infraction, so to say. But the morality of it was clearly wrong. 4 people sitting to pass a budget of a 32-member house without any commissioner coming to defend it, and you signed it into law the next day. You gave a caricature of the whole process. And so being the chief executive of the state, what it should have, I mean, the decision he would have taken would have been to exercise a bit of patience. He was in a hurry as at that material point in time. If he exercised a bit of patience, it wouldn't have been impossible for him to still spend 50% of the last year's budget, which is usually done, which is not an infraction of the law, till he presents the budget. Because Rivers State cannot be at a standstill because the budget has not been represented or presented before the House. So I think he was in a hurry. And I think those who were advising him were eager to ensure that they finished the 27 members without following the due process of the law. That's what I think. So,
Mr. Libros, just like I asked them, is this enough to serve as deterrence to other politicians? And let me ask you the second question. I mean, Governor Fubara, although not new to political corridors as a civil servant, but as an elected, he's new. Do you think the governor was misled by his handlers in this matter? Mr. Libros, are you there? Mr. Libros?
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
That question for me, or for Ken?
Okay, let me repeat that question.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Right, let me repeat my question. I asked Mr. Ken if this judgment is enough to serve as deterrent to other politicians. And I'm also asking if you think Governor Fubara was misled by his handlers in this matter.
You see, they say, he who the gods want to kill, the first make man. I don't know if you can hear me.
I do. I can. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Mr. Libros, please go ahead. I can hear you. Mr. Libros, please go ahead with your contribution. I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead. I can hear you.
And so, okay, yeah. So for
all right, let me continue with Sir Ken. Sir Ken, can you hear me? Are you implying that the governor was misled by his handlers in this matter? Sir Ken, can you hear me? Mr. Ken, you need to unmute yourself, please.
I'm not muted. I can hear you.
All right, please go ahead. Are you implying that the governor was misled by his handlers or his people in this matter?
Was that question for me?
Yes, please.
Oh, yes. He was clearly misled by his handlers because, you see, the truth about it is those around you, the advice they give you matters a lot. You know, Governor Fubara is coming from a civil service experience. He doesn't have the political experience. And so he had a lot of people speaking to him at the same time. And, you know, those who want to finish and execute the minister of the FCT have all latched into this seemingly feud between himself and his political godfather. And so they have cancelled him, and they have cancelled him wrongly. Well, the president has given them a leeway to retrace their steps. So if he goes ahead to represent the budget, which is part of the Peace Pact, the House would have to pass that budget. They shouldn't seemingly delay the budget, maybe to try to also frustrate Governor Fubara. They should pass the budget when the commissioners come and defend their expenditures. And once the budget is passed, I think it will be laid to rest and they can move on as it is now, because there's not too much you can pay for peace. You should rather go for peace than go for war. So those who are finding the embers of discord, going to court and all that, should also be appealed to allow the governor to concentrate, because at this material point in time, he needs to also concentrate to deliver the dividends of democracy to his people.
So let's get another takeaway from that judgment. The court also warned Governor Fubara not to exceed his power. Owing to this controversy around the powers of the governor, Justice Omotosho said the power to make laws in a state are shared between the executive, the state assembly, and local government areas. How important are these warnings to the peace and sanctity of Rivers State and its people?
Well, I think Justice Omotosho was not unaware of the other ex parte order that was given by Danagogo, which empowered Edison here to sit now as the speaker, and actually the governor presented the budget before Edison here. So he was not unaware of it, and that is why he must have said that stop your interference, because if you quickly embrace the judgment of Edison here, I didn't embrace my own judgment. So to say, I call them judgment now, even though they were ex parte orders. But the way they treated those ex parte orders were like as if they were final judgments. Unlike now that it's the final judgment recognizing the speaker. So I think the governor must at this material point in time ask himself, am I doing this for the interest of the Rivers people, or is it an ego thing? Well, I must also point out here that the governor has dealt with the former governor, Wike. If you accepted, and they said it's like he actually also said that he did not intend to run for governor. And now you have run for the governor of the state, governorship election, you've won the elections. You must also take the pros and the cons. You can't pretend that you have not worked with Wike for 8 years. You're not used to his temperament. What is it that Wike has done that he has not done in 8 years when you were working with him? So it is just a case of ego, which we must put aside to allow the Rivers people move on, because you have subsumed yourself under his leadership before now. He has helped you. You have confirmed that you have not said he did not buy your form to become the governor. He supported you. He campaigned for you. And so you should look at it from those perspectives, and not only the perspective of those who are saying that, no, at this point in time, Wike is overbearing. Of course, everybody knows that Wike has his own he has his own tendencies, but that is Wike for you. You can't change Wike. You understand? And so if you've been with this man for the long period of time you have been with him, why is that at this point in time you make it look like, oh, you cannot stomach those things that Wike is doing at this material point in time? No, you should at this point in time ask yourself, where were those people when Wike was presenting you before the Rivers people as the governorship candidate of PDP and backing you? Those are the questions you must ask yourself. It is easy for them to now come and also kick against Wike, but it also behaves on you to take that decision, that bold decision, to tell yourself that some of this wouldn't mean well.
Second, let's take